So, Resident Evil 6. I want to talk about it for two main reasons. The first being that my opinions have changed on it due to having more experience with it now. And the second reason being I'm kind of out of ideas with Resident Evil. So, shoot me an idea if you can think of any. But Resident Evil is kind of not on the upswing right now for things to talk about, at least in my eyes. The movie came out, talked about that. DLC for the new game probably won't come out for forever, so it's either time to go into hibernation for me or move on to other things. So I don't know. I don't know what to do. But what I do know I can do right now is just give my honest, finalized opinions on Resident Evil 6, the all-around accepted worst game in the series that I ranked above both 4 and 5 and 0 the last time that I ranked these games, which was the second time that I ranked these games. But now, having reflected on my past decisions and having played through 6 a total of 3 times now, I think 3 times on all stories, and having played through 5 3 to 2 times, I don't remember, and having played through 4 about a quarter of the way for the second time, I've come to realize that I may be an idiot. This is not to say all people who think that 6 is a better game than those others or is even a good game are idiots in general, but my decision-making process in what is good and what is bad has not been concise in the slightest. But I mean, it's not easy to, categorize things by goodness because it has a lot to do with personal preference, but there are some objectively good and bad things about certain things, that's for sure. And this is an objective thing that I think didn't hit me hard enough until I had to sit through the game on multiple occasions. And that thing is just how ridiculously long every mission, level, whatever you want to call it, is in Resident Evil 6. So you may or may not know that there's there's 4 campaigns, each one has 5 levels. And these individual stories take, on average, around 8 hours to beat each character's whole 5 levels. So splitting an 8-hour story into 5 separate missions is a little bit of a weird decision in my opinion. And yes, there are checkpoints within those levels. There are reasons that you don't want to stop between checkpoints. One big reason being if you're playing online with someone and you quit at that point, there's a large chance that it will not recognize the fact that the person that was playing with you was the person playing with you, and it might just not even credit them for doing anything that they've done so far. And okay, that's just a kind of what-if scenario, but one thing that's always certain with these missions is that they just become tedious if you're, playing the game within, say, a week span to beat the whole game, and you play all the characters' stories, and you start to realize that the same locations get reused a few times, and reusing one location just a single time in, say, a almost 2-hour mission makes for a very boring 2 hours that is not backed up by an all that interesting story in my opinion, and is also not backed up by a very interesting enemy variety, also in my opinion. And this is the only game in the series that suffers from this because it's the only game that does this weird splitting of the stories, barring, say, Resident Evil 1 and 2, but I don't put that on the same plane as this game for various reasons that I do not want to explain in long detail. But I feel most people who have played these games would agree that comparing the, story selection in 2 compared to 6 is very different because it's more of a character selection than a story selection. But regardless, what I mainly am comparing this to is 4 and 5 because, like I've said a million times, they're basically a trilogy of very similar games because they play very similar. And 6 is the only one that does this. 5 and 4 have one story with not crazy long missions. I think 5 and 4 usually don't go longer than a 30-minute interval before you finish the mission, maybe sometimes longer. But that is necessary with games like these, at least in my opinion, because this isn't my favorite type of game. 4, 5, and 6 are down low for me for a reason, and that's because they're very repetitive throughout, in my opinion. And 6 just takes the repetitiveness to a whole nother level with the 2-hour marathon you have to run. And I just now come to realize this after having streamed it whenever it was. It was a few months ago now. That was my third time playing through it. And it was probably my least favorite time playing through it. My first time being me just doing it solo, and then me doing it with a friend, and then me streaming it with a friend. And, you know, my whole spiel about putting 6 above 4 in the past was that at least it's co-op. At least you can, you know, have fun playing it with someone. But that fun kind of fades away after the first time. I mean, I'm sure you could find some way to make it more fun, but it just started to become, you know, something to check off, because it's just not all that interesting story-wise. I mean, some people can play a game for the story multiple times. I can do that with some games, but usually you do it for the gameplay. And 6's gameplay is mediocre. I mean, it has interesting melee stuff you can do, but it is very much an 8-hour session of you doing the same exact thing the entire time. Obviously, I mean, you get to drive a motorcycle for one part, you get to do something else for one part, but the novelty of that really wears off after you've done it once or twice. And for that reason, I have to say that it is a worse game in my eyes than both 4 and 5. Something, you know, I would have realized had I had more experience with it. But, you know, we all live and learn things as we go on. And yes, I understand all the things that were said about my decision making back then. They are justified. Even though it was opinion-based, we can all agree that sometimes opinions are just wrong, right? And unfortunately, I was caught on the wrong side of my own opinions. And who knows, I may backtrack again one day. Because that's just what I do, you know? Perspective, retrospective, it changes things. But yeah, that's all I had to say. And this is goodbye for the foreseeable future, if it wasn't already, because it's been like almost a month since I did anything. But I want to do something. So like I said, you know, if you can think of something, let me know. I'll consider. It doesn't even have to be Resident Evil, even though that might be the dagger that kills me. You know, going against what my roots are. But if this is a goodbye, enjoy your life. Merry Christmas. Have a good New Year. I'll miss you. Goodbye.